we've got mortgage coach loan officers, mortgage coach leaders on this call, and we get asked this question a lot, but what are some of the considerations for pre-disclosures, like our total cost analysis? You know, what can loan officers provide to borrowers? What do they need to stop doing? And I know I'm just piling on the questions, get to it as you go, but what about rate quoting with emails? So how do you answer that, Mitch?
All right, so let's take it from the top. In terms of what you do pre-disclosure, in other words, pre-loan estimate itself, can you give a cost estimate, which includes, you know, an estimate of what their rate will otherwise be? The answer to that is yes, you can do that. And this rule actually clarifies how you do that. You have to make sure that the manner in which you're doing it and that the documentation you provide does not in any way, shape, or form look like the loan estimate, like the official form, and it does not look like the closing estimate. You have to have different headings. You have to use a different format that was in the that are in the LE, the loan estimate, and the CD, the closing disclosure itself. You also now have to have a very specific disclosure, and it's so specific that it has to be in 12-point font, and it's a disclaimer that has to be on the top of what you provide, and it's got to say your actual rate, payment, and costs could be higher. Get an official loan estimate before choosing a loan. So that has to be provided along with any of these cost estimates pre-disclosure that you provide, and that's a brand new requirement that's there. It doesn't apply to general advertisements, but it applies to estimates that are specific to the consumer themselves. The CFPB really wants you to ensure that these costs estimates, these pre-disclosure, pre-LE cost estimates, which may provide unreliable information, are clearly distinguishable from the loan estimate, which is subject to this good faith requirement, which, as I said earlier, is virtually a guarantee. That's what the good faith requirement is. They want to make sure that the consumer knows the difference and that you tell the consumer, hey, this may not be what you ultimately get. This may not be accurate. So they also want to make sure that none of the loan officers out there are playing games. If the consumer wants to submit those 6 pieces of information to you, you got to take those 6 pieces of information. You can sequence it in terms of what you ask for, but you can't turn them down if they're giving you that information. And once you have the 6 pieces of information that constitute an application for loan estimate purposes, then all these pre-disclosure estimates really go out the window. You have to give the loan estimate itself. So for any cost estimates or rate quotes, including emails, you've got to ensure that your activities are in compliance with these pre-disclosure restrictions that I just laid out for you. You have to balance accuracy with consumer service, obviously, and you got to train and monitor. You got to monitor the transactions, the conversations, and activity so that you can protect yourself along those lines. Lenders have to make sure that it's going well. Quite frankly, it makes what you guys do at Mortgage Coach all the more important. It absolutely does. Consistency is very important, and staying within the 4 corners of this particular rule on pre-disclosure activity, what you can say, what you must say, and what you can't say is absolutely essential.
So quoting rates in an email, good idea, bad idea?
Well, quoting rates in an email is, it's certainly not my favorite thing to do, quite frankly. But you can go ahead and do these things, but remember the disclosure that you've got to lay out for them. In fact, if you're going to give them any type of a cost estimate, including rates, you better have this specific disclosure over here that says to them, this might not be what you ultimately get. Your actual rate, payment and costs could be higher. Get an official loan estimate before choosing a loan. You have to make sure that's in there. And if you're going to quote rates in an email, that's going to have to be in your email as well.
Yeah, and it's hard to manage it. So again, we're dedicated to that, to make sure that you can quote the rate, APRs there, and it's in a way that can be audited. So that's Joe, anything you want to add to that, or any color you want to provide on that specific question?
No, I would just say thanks, Mitch, again, for framing the information as clearly as you have in the event. I think that for many folks, and I can see in the chat and I can see in the feedback, we're addressing some of the most important questions.